Hello again, everyone. A YouTube commenter asked me what soldering iron and what welder I use, so I figured I'd make a video. This one is about the soldering iron. Here it is. Don't let its size fool you. This thing definitely punches above its weight. It's the Pine64 Pencil soldering iron. I'm a computer guy, so naturally, I really like this soldering iron because it has a 32-bit, 144 megahertz RISC-V processor in it. And it has 192 kilobytes of internal flash ROM and 132 kilobytes of very fast static RAM, or SRAM. And it's got this 0.69-inch monochrome LCD that has a resolution of 96 by 16. Now, that might sound like overkill because it's just a soldering iron, right? Well, this thing has to do math. It reads the temperature of the tip in real time very fast, many times per second. And it automatically, totally dynamically adjusts the power being sent to it. So once it heats up, okay, you touch something to it, that heat energy is being sapped away, okay? And the CPU monitors all that, and it pumps more power into it, making sure not to go over, which is very important. It also has a Bluetooth chip in it, which is great. Check this out. You can go to my website, go to howtobuildabattery.com/soldering iron. That's literally all you have to do. And then just make sure Bluetooth is on your phone. And then you pair to it. Boom, look at that. Look at that. We are in business. I just did some TV magic and cleaned off the screen a little bit. Okay, check it out. So this is how you turn it on. You just press this button. And look at this. Look. The top is the temperature, and the bottom is the power. You can see it's running at about 60 watts now, and it's taking that amount of energy to heat the tip up. But now, the power usage totally plummets while the temperature is held consistent. And that RISC processor, that 32-bit chip in there, is always doing that math over and over again to make sure everything is good. Now, like I said, when you put the soldering iron on something to transfer heat into it, remember that heat is leaving the soldering iron. So look at the power chart here. Watch this. See? So as the soldering iron needs to, it will send more power to the tip. And it does all of that in real time. So that gives you a very consistent, precise amount of power. This is a fantastic soldering iron. Other soldering irons claim to do this, but they don't. They don't do it nearly as well. Plug in a fan. And I'm not going to blow the fan towards me because that will cool off the soldering iron as I'm trying to work. Instead, I'm going to blow the fan away from me so it just sucks all the air away. Let's turn this fan around. There we go. And check it out. See, the fan works really good, and so does the temperature display. I don't want to melt my nice new 3D printed table, so I'm going to use a piece of cardboard here. Okay, I've got this piece of nickel and this random piece of 14 gauge wire. And good old 60-40 solder. This is 2% flux by weight. I do all my soldering on maximum temperature. And I don't burn up my stuff because I use time and pressure to modulate the temperature. So instead of always fiddling with the dials, I just have it on max, and I'm mindful about how long I spend on something. Check it out. See how it flows so well? This is a very, very good soldering iron. It's absolutely the best soldering iron I've ever used. So let's... See? Look at the performance. It's very good. See how it keeps the solder totally molten, even though I'm not really doing much? It is a very powerful soldering iron. Just in case you're curious how well it works with copper, look at that. Just instantly wets it. Even though we have this massive slab of copper here absorbing the heat energy, we can see the soldering iron is absolutely doing its job. Just pumping the watts into that tip. Look at that. You see that? And look how well it does at removing it. You can see the energy going in. No problem. No problem at all. Now let's solder this piece of nickel to the copper. Get that a little warm. Oops. There we go. Oh yeah, yeah. We're in there. It's still hot. There we go. No problems. So now I'm going to solder another one of these together. I featured this module, or one of these modules, in an earlier video, and it gave some people with emotional problems, like a panic attack, when they saw how I soldered it. So, of course, I'm going to do it again. This is a male XT60 connector, and I'm just going to solder it directly to this. That way I can just plug it in, and I'll have a 65 watt USB port to charge my MacBook or use this soldering iron. Remember when everything had a random proprietary power cord? I love the fact that I can literally, oops, sorry about that. I can literally unplug this from my soldering iron and plug it directly into my laptop and charge it. The future is awesome. Also, you don't have to use USB-C. As you can see, there's a standard DC barrel jack right there. Some people insist, they say they absolutely panic if you don't reinforce the connection, but it's totally unnecessary. You can do just a straight up solder bridge and you will never have any problems. It just depends on the situation. If I was making a 60 amp connector for an e-bike, yeah, of course, I would put some reinforcement in there, some copper strip or some copper wire, from the inside of a wire, some strands. But look, you do not have to do that every time. We can see that our connections are a little wider than this. So it's a tiny little bit of a challenge just to get that first thing on there. And we have positive on the right. Yes. Nope. Yes. When it's upside down, positive is on the right. When it's right side up, positive is on the left. For these connectors, you want to use the flat side for positive. That is definitely the standard. Okay, I'm cooling off the soldering iron with the fan off camera, just so you can see how fast it heats up. Okay, so we're pretty cool now. We're under 60 C. Are you ready? Here we go. Look at that. And that's from a damn USB port, man. We are seriously in the future. Look at that. Perfectly regulated. No problem. Okay, so I'm going to prepare this by putting some solder on here. As you can see, it is no problem. It flows very readily because this is a great soldering iron. There we go. And I'll put some solder on here and kind of just bridge it over in the air. Now the technique with this is you just want to tap it. Look at that. See how I'm able to get the solder to extend over? Just by tapping it. There we go. Now this part's a little tricky, whether you use reinforcement or not, just because of the gap. There we go. Now, of course, we don't want to leave it like this. It's not a great connection. and it's crooked. You know, it's not straight, but it's okay. So check it out. We can kind of bend it a little bit because I just tacked it on there. But I do want to move it over a little bit because it's not quite straight. So let's actually take that off. There we go. Okay, so now I'm more in the middle. There we go. I'm closer to the middle. This is our preliminary situation. See how I've got it tacked on now, relatively straight. We can take this opportunity to bend it a little bit because there's not a lot of solder connecting it. And here we go. I'm going to go on the side that I have not connected at all yet. And I'm just going to use the one that I have connected as just the structural support. You can see that this is a very powerful, very high quality soldering iron. Okay, let's get in real close. We'll turn the light on. Now check this out. Because this soldering iron is so powerful, it is no problem to get a really good connection in there. Now we've got that side pretty good. Not done with it yet, but we can go ahead and add solder to this. There we go. That's never coming off. And it's such a thick, massive connection that even though solder itself is a pretty poor conductor, this can handle, you know, more than enough, much more than enough amps. Because this is just a 65 watt iron. I'm going to be plugging it into like a 24 volt source. It only needs to handle a few amps, and it can definitely do it. The reason why people say, you have to add copper, you have to add wire, because they don't understand resistance. Just straight up, plain and simple, point blank, they don't understand resistance. All they know about resistance is that you want as little of it as possible. They don't have the mental faculties to tell you, you know, exactly what the resistance does, how much resistance there is, and how much is okay. But, you know, we don't have that problem here. Here I have this 7S4P 18650 battery, and I'm just going to plug this guy right in. There we go. And then now we can plug the soldering iron in there, and look at that. Battery powered soldering iron, just like that. You got to consider, if it can run on USB PD, then it can run on several different types of batteries. Now this is a 24 volt battery, and I'm able to give this module the full voltage that it supports, so it's able to output 20 volt PD signal. But it doesn't have to, the soldering iron doesn't have to run on that. You can run it on 12 volt, 9 volt, or even 5 volt, I think, USB PD. It just takes much longer to heat up. I'm still running it on that battery, it's just off camera. And just as a exercise, for no particular reason, I'm just going to do some soldering so you can see, you know, how well this soldering iron works. You can see I'm having no problem doing that at all. It is a very nice, very powerful soldering situation. This is some other soldering I did with it. This is a dual temperature sensor. It's using an ESP32 and an ADS1115. And I've got all the stuff on the back, so it's nice and clean on the top. And I'm forming voltage dividers for the temperature sensors. Notice that I'm not using any pins to connect the board. That's because this soldering iron is so good and so powerful, I can just lay the board on there and then literally solder down into each hole, and it flows all the way through and connects. No problem. Look at this. No problem. Here's another 14 gauge wire, and I'm going to solder it to this copper for no reason, you know, just to do it. Just so you can see it flow. Look how readily I can push that in. Another technique I use is to press down with a screwdriver like this. But sometimes things like that can happen. But that's okay. It comes off pretty easy. Well, that's it. This is my soldering iron. I hope you liked it. I really, really love this soldering iron. And like I said, if you're interested in this, the app, and you have one of these soldering irons, you can just go to howtobuildabattery.com/soldering iron, and the I is capitalized. See? You just go there. It's a simple pair button. You choose the soldering iron, and that is it. There's one button you can choose how much time to have on the chart. See, we have 30 seconds, 1 minute, 2 minutes, 5 minutes, and then all. I don't recommend that. It'll just fill your phone's RAM after a while. Thanks for watching!